The movie begins on a distant planet called Saiton, where a scientist named Jane and his wife celebrate the birth of their child. Their happiness is short-lived as they hear the sound of an approaching spaceship. Fear grips their faces, and their only concern is the safety of their child. Jane's wife suggests hiding the baby, but Jane knows it won't work because their enemies will find him. With no other option, they decide to send their child far away. Before the spaceship arrives, Jane places the baby in a pod, setting its course toward Earth, specifically the USA. As the pod takes off, the spaceship breaks through their home's defenses, and enemy soldiers storm in, clearing the way for the main villain, Scorba, the tyrant ruling Saiton and making life miserable for its inhabitants. Scorba demands to know the whereabouts of their child, but Jane and his wife refuse to reveal anything. Furious, Scorba threatens to destroy everything. His daughter, Jayata, steps in to stop him and offers to find the child herself, hoping to win her father's favor. Jayata uses her mind-reading abilities on Jane and discovers that the pod is headed toward the USA. Determined, she boards a pod to chase after the baby. Before she departs, Scorba reminds her that he wants the child alive at all costs. Jayata is about to catch up to the baby's pod when it collides with a satellite, causing both pods to veer off course. Jayata's pod heads toward the USA, while the baby's pod veers toward Spain. The scene shifts to Earth, focusing on Maria and Juan, a couple driving their truck. Suddenly, the baby's pod crashes into their truck, startling them. Gathering their courage, they step out to inspect and find a baby inside the pod. Maria is immediately drawn to the baby, but Juan is skeptical, especially because the baby has a mustache. Despite his reservations, the baby's charm wins him over, but as Juan reaches out, the baby grabs his finger and bends it effortlessly. Shocked, Juan screams in pain. In the next scene, the couple brings the baby home. Juan attempts to shave the baby's mustache, but it grows back instantly. Defeated, he gives up. Maria and Juan decide to adopt the baby, naming him Lopez, and begin raising him as their own child. As Lopez grows, they realize he isn't an ordinary child. He possesses extraordinary speed, strength, and other powers, which he occasionally uses. However, these abilities make him an outcast among his peers, who start avoiding him. One day, during a soccer match, Lopez is the goalkeeper. Holding the ball, he's unsure where to throw it, and the pressure of the game overwhelms him. Using his powers, he scores a goal himself. Instead of celebrating, his teammates get angry, reminding him that soccer is a team sport and his solo goal didn't help. Witnessing this, Juan warns Lopez not to use his powers in public. On Lopez's birthday, no one attends his party, leaving him disappointed. Standing outside, his parents approach him with a cake, trying to cheer him up. They explain that using his powers makes him appear strange to others, which is why people avoid him. They urge him to blow out the candles and make a wish. Lopez wishes for a normal life and blows out the candles, but his breath is so strong that the cake splatters all over his parents' faces. The scene shifts 30 years forward. Lopez, now an adult, is sleeping on his couch when he's woken up by a call from his boss and friend, Jamie. Jamie scolds Lopez for being late again, but Lopez lies, claiming he's already at his workstation. Jamie, having just left the station, catches him in the lie, prompting Lopez to make another excuse, saying he was in the restroom. Jamie orders him to report to the office immediately. Using his super speed, Lopez gets ready in seconds and reaches his station before Jamie arrives, pretending he's been working all along. Impressed by Lopez's dedication, Jamie tells him about a new hire at the office, Luisa, whom Jamie has a crush on. He seeks Lopez's help to impress her, insisting on throwing her a welcome party, even though no other employee has ever received one. Annoyed, Lopez reluctantly agrees. Later, Lopez overhears a familiar voice and uses his super senses to discover that the new hire is none other than his college friend, Luisa. Jamie throws a small party for her, but the gathering feels awkward. Uncomfortable, Luisa excuses herself to the restroom and eventually decides to leave, irritated by Jamie's behavior. Realizing she's gone, Lopez uses his super speed to catch up with her at the train station. Initially, he thinks he's too late, but he hears her voice calling out to him. Relieved, Lopez asks her out for dinner. Though hesitant at first, Luisa agrees. At dinner, the two reminisce about their college days and enjoy each other's company. Their conversation is interrupted by a group of rowdy teenagers making noise. Luisa politely asks them to quiet down, but when they don't listen, she confronts them. The teenagers retaliate, challenging Lopez to a fight. Although Lopez could easily defeat them, he remembers his father's advice to keep his powers hidden and walks away. Later, sitting at the train station, Lopez overhears an announcement about the last train arriving. As the train approaches, Lopez notices its brakes have failed, endangering everyone. He steps onto the tracks, using his powers to stop the train. Initially unsuccessful, he finally manages to halt the train, saving countless lives. To avoid revealing his identity, Lopez quickly leaves the scene. The focus shifts to Jayata, who is now a renowned figure in the technology industry. During a presentation for her latest invention, she receives news that someone with immense power has been located. Jayata immediately leaves, convinced it must be Jane's son. Surveillance footage doesn't show his face, but Jayata knows only Jane's child could possess such strength. Determined, she sets out to find Lopez. Meanwhile, news of the train rescue spreads like wildfire. At Lopez's office, everyone discusses the mysterious hero. While most are inspired, Luisa dismisses it as a publicity stunt. Lopez defends the hero, unable to tolerate criticism of himself. The news catches Jayata's attention, and she publicly demands to meet the hero, offering a partnership to achieve great things together. Later, she informs her father, Scorba, via video call that she will soon find Lopez and they can return to their home planet. Scorba, skeptical and impatient, warns her against failure, threatening to destroy Earth if she messes up. The movie concludes with Lopez rushing to meet Luisa for dinner, assuring her over the phone that he's on his way, unaware that Jayata is closing in on him. Suddenly, Lopez starts hearing strange voices that only he can hear, which he initially assumes are coming from the radio. However, it's not the radio. It's Jayata speaking to him telepathically. She tells Lopez that he doesn't need to speak as she cannot hear him, and instructs him to come meet her immediately to get answers to his questions. As Lopez steps off the bus, his face is filled with confusion and unanswered questions. To seek clarity, the next scene shows him entering his office, where Jayata is waiting for him. Jayata tries to manipulate him with sweet words, convincing him that they are from the same planet and that she only wants what's best for him. However, Lopez feels uneasy and decides to leave. Sensing his thoughts, Jayata reads his mind and learns that Luisa is waiting for him at the restaurant. Realizing this, she orders her men to stop Lopez, but he easily overpowers them and leaves. Furious, Jayata decides to use Lopez's weakness against him and instructs her men to retrieve Luisa's DNA. Meanwhile, Jamie is seen leaving a note on Luisa's desk at the office, but he notices a strange device nearby. Upon closer inspection, Jamie sees that the device is extracting Luisa's personal information. He immediately tries to destroy it, enlisting the help of night shift workers in the office. Together, they successfully disable the device. Jamie then calls Luisa to warn her, managing to figure out her location. Lopez finally reaches Luisa and tries to explain his situation, but they end up arguing. Luisa accuses him of not being interested in her and blames him for everything, escalating the argument. Mid-fight, the tension shifts, and they suddenly kiss. Jamie, who arrives at the scene, witnesses this and is heartbroken. Jayata, who has been observing from the shadows, reads Jamie's mind, realizing that he also has feelings for Luisa. She uses his vulnerability to manipulate him into joining her. In the next scene, Lopez is at his parents' house, seeking answers about his origins. Initially, his parents try to hide the truth, but when Lopez tells them about the strange girl trying to take him to another galaxy, they finally reveal everything. They show him the pod in which he arrived on Earth. When Lopez touches the pod, a hologram of his real father, Jane, appears, explaining the entire story. Jane tells Lopez that he is a superhero and their planet's last hope against Scorba. Even so, Lopez struggles to believe it. Jane encourages him to uncover the truth himself. Lopez's mother finds a cloth inside the pod with the letter S on it and uses it to make him a superhero costume. In the next scene, we see Lopez donning the costume. Hoping that he can fly, his parents take him to the roof of a building to test his abilities. After much convincing, Lopez jumps off but lands on the ground, disheartened. As he walks away, some kids spot him in his costume and start mocking him. Frustrated, Lopez channels his anger and begins flying. After a few rough landings, he finally gains control and returns home. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. Luisa enters and hugs Lopez, claiming she knows everything. However, it is quickly revealed that this is not Luisa but a robot. Lopez takes the fake Luisa into a room to talk privately, but she only praises Jayata, claiming her intentions are good. Lopez cuts her off, trying to discuss something from the previous night, a topic Jayata, controlling the robot remotely, has no knowledge of. Sensing trouble, she brings Jamie into the situation, who can do little more than express his anger toward Lopez. As emotions run high, Jayata, frustrated by losing control, orders the fake Luisa to attack Lopez. The robot Luisa proves to be a tough opponent, and Lopez struggles to defeat her. Sensing her son is in danger, Lopez's mother intervenes. But seeing his mother in peril fills Lopez with rage. Summoning his strength, he decapitates the robot. Witnessing this, Jaida becomes enraged. She uses Jamie's memories to learn that he had tried to warn Lopez earlier. Deciding to leverage this, she plans to use Jamie and the real Luisa to capture Lopez. Lopez's mother urges him to save Luisa. He flies to her location, confirming her identity before revealing his true self to her. Just as he's about to demonstrate his powers, Jaida's men in costumes appear and attack him. During the chaos, Jaida's forces kidnap Luisa. Jaida's voice echoes, telling Lopez that if he wants to save his loved ones, he must help her and her father take over the world. Lopez tracks down Jaida's headquarters, where he finds Jamie and Luisa tied up. To prove his sincerity, Lopez begins revealing details about Luisa that only someone close to her would know. Before he can free them, Jaida increases a high-frequency sound wave, causing Lopez immense pain. Jamie and Luisa try to calm him down, but it's ineffective. They realize that mocking Lopez reduces the pain, so they start insulting him. This unorthodox approach works, allowing Lopez to regain control. Meanwhile, Scorba's spaceship lands on Earth. Instead of congratulating Jaida, he demands to meet Lopez directly. While Lopez, Jamie, and Luisa manage to escape, Jaida faces humiliation from her father. Enraged and consumed by anger, she kills Scorba herself. As he dies, Scorba telepathically grants her approval to take his place. Jaida, now the new leader, sits on her father's throne, preparing to enact her plans. The final scenes show Lopez at home with Jamie, Luisa, and his parents. Lopez decides he can no longer be a superhero and burns his costume. However, Jaida suddenly appears, threatening to destroy everything if Lopez refuses to join her. She transforms into a giant monster, leading to an intense battle. The monster captures Lopez's father, nearly destroying him, and turns its attention to his mother. Lopez tries to intervene, but is unsuccessful. Jamie sacrifices himself to save Lopez's mother, entering the monster's machine. Just as Jaida is about to kill Lopez, Luisa arrives and insults him, reigniting his strength. His parents and Jamie join in, lifting Lopez's spirits. Fully empowered, Lopez defeats Jaida in an epic battle and traps her in her spaceship, sending it back to her planet. With Jaida gone, Lopez begins a new chapter with Luisa. In the final moments, Lopez steps outside in his superhero costume. Over the radio, mixed comments about the city's hero can be heard, but Lopez doesn't seem bothered. The movie ends here, leaving an open-ended journey for the hero.